Individuals face many risks in their efforts to fund their retirement. Melanie Dunn from Mercurium has joined me today to examine this situation. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, Darren.
So let's start with the basics. What sort of risks are we talking about that retirees face, and what sort of conversations do advisors need to have with their clients when planning their retirement years?
And I think you've touched on two really important points there. When we're talking to clients about retirement, understanding the risks that they face and what that means for the strategies we might implement is really important. But also we want to understand their situation, their goals and needs for retirement. So a good place to start is to talk to them about what their spending needs are, and we think about breaking that down between what are those essential expenditure items like the utility bills, groceries, compared to those things that are more like wants, the golf club membership, what they might spend going out to dinner and the cinema. Understanding it and doing a process to create a budget so we know what our clients are spending and what that means for their income needs in retirement. A second step would be to talk about the risks. And there are three key risks to a retiree's outcomes in retirement. We've got market risk or sequencing risk, which is the risk that the order and timing of the returns they achieve on their investments will perhaps negatively impact their asset values and their overall outcomes. We've got longevity risk, the risk that they might outlive their savings, live a long time in retirement. And the risk of inflation, something we're all thinking about at the moment, how the cost of living, the cost of all of those things that we want to do and spend our money on, how that will go up over time. As a practitioner with our clients, we then need to combine these impacts, the risks that our clients face with the goals and their spending requirements to determine some quantitative measures of success for what retirement would look like for them. What would be a successful retirement?
So when you talk about measures of success, can you flesh that out a little bit? So what are we talking about there?
Yeah, so it's all well and good for a retiree to say, I want to spend the same type of lifestyle I've got today into the future. That's a pretty vague goal. As an advisor or a practitioner, we need to distill that down to something that we can quantitatively test. So we might take an objective like spending $100,000 a year in retirement, say that's their current lifestyle. And we start to have a conversation with them, or, what does that mean for retirement? Is that the right spending? If it is, thinking about the factors like what will happen when one of you passes away? What will happen as you get older? Will your spending needs change? And work out that cash flow plan. And our measure of success might then be the level of confidence we're looking for, given the risk in the fund investments, that spending goal would be achieved. So we might be looking for something like a very high confidence, maybe 80% confidence, if I want to put a number to it, that spending goal will be achieved for life, because we have to think of the longevity risk, the time frame as well. Now, a retiree might have more than one goal. They might be worried about aged care, or they might have a goal to leave some money to their children or as an estate. So we have kind of primary goals or measures of success and then secondary goals. So it might be, as well as wanting this high confidence of our desired income lasting for life, that a secondary goal might be, I want to make sure I've got $50,000 in today's dollars to leave to my child when I pass away. I want to make sure there's at least $50,000 in the bank that they'll get as an estate benefit. Or I want $100,000 when I'm age 85 in case I need to go into an aged care home, and that might be something that I need. So we can put some quantitative measures around the objectives of the member, and then we can start to think, well, what do we need to do to assess whether those will be achieved?
Okay, when you're talking about measures of success, they always need to be reviewed and assessed as to how well they've gone in the past, I suppose you could say. So we're talking about testing here. How can these measures be tested?
Exactly. It's all well and good to have a quantitative measure that we want to check, but we've actually got to make sure we can put some science behind how we check whether that goal will be achieved. So something that advisors and practitioners need to understand and think about is the type of models and tools that they use to answer these types of questions. Will my client have a high likelihood of achieving their income for life? Will they have $100,000 when they're 85? So to answer these types of questions, we need a tool, typically an online calculator or a retirement tool that will assess the client's situation. Now, best practice for these types of tools, as someone who works with the Actuaries Institute on these types of matters, is that we want tools that comprehensively assess a household. So it needs to consider, the husband and wife, their assets and income inside superannuation, what they have outside superannuation, and allow for those different spending shapes we talked about as well. Once we have a comprehensive model sitting behind these tools, we then need to, have appropriate assumptions for how we forecast someone's retirement. Most commonly, models will use what we call fixed or deterministic assumptions. Most tools you see on the internet will be this type of modelling. So it might have, say, an assumption for 6% per annum investment returns each and every year in retirement, 2.5% inflation each and every year in retirement. The great thing about these tools is they're very easy to use. They produce nice outputs. Everything's very linear and easy to understand. But one issue with these tools that we really like to highlight is that they don't allow for risk. So we talked at the start that there's those 3 key risks faced by retirees, and risk is all about uncertainty. That idea that we know our clients aren't going to get 6% every year into the future on their investments. And so if they're not going to get 6%, they might get 8 and then -2 and then 0 and then 10. And what's the impact of all those differences on their outcome? What you find when you use tools that use those fixed assumptions is that they really can underplay the impact of sequencing risk, that impact of the changes in returns over time on someone's outcomes. So what we propose that people use is a model that uses both those fixed assumptions to help have an initial discussion, but then really does a stress test, a risk analysis of the strategy using a stochastic model, which is one that considers thousands of different return scenarios to stress test a household's success measures to determine whether they'll be achievable. That will help us answer that question. Do I have that high confidence that 80% chance my income will last for life? It really puts some actuarial science behind stress testing a retiree's goals.
Okay, so what can advisors do to help their clients make these applicable strategies work to get the desired outcome?
Yes, good question. We can sit there with our client, ask all these questions, run our models and show them the outcomes. But we need to help our clients understand what it means to sticking to these strategies. So we might have tested that their desired spending was sustainable. It was achievable within the risk tolerance of the client. What we need to communicate to them is that things do change over time. Their circumstances might change. Markets might move, on the extreme, we might have a GFC type event. So it's really important to educate our clients about their plan, about why we've implemented the plan as it is, and that they should come back and talk to us if they've got problems or their circumstances change, because it could mean that we need to work together to update that plan. We don't want our clients being very worried if markets go down over the next year and do something like change their investment risk without talking to us. That can have a really negative impact on the overall outcome, because we'll have established a plan with our stochastic analysis, allowing for the fact that returns could go down in some circumstances. So we don't want, any, immediate decisions to be made without us thinking it through what it means for our client. Conversely, they might get an inheritance, or they might have their family situation change, and all of those things can have a material impact on the strategy. So having a really good rapport with our clients, helping them understand the factors and the triggers that might need a discussion and might need a change to that plan, is really important. And as part of that annual review process, we can revisit someone's retirement strategy and make sure that everything's still on track based on their current circumstances.
Okay, Melanie, thanks for the discussion.
Thanks, Darren.
Melanie will be covering this subject in more detail at the SMSF Professionals Day 2023, co-hosted by Self-Managed Super and Accurium. This year's event will be returning to a 3-city roadshow format, kicking off in Brisbane on the 25th of May and concluding in Sydney on the 8th of June. There will be an online component as well. To find out more about the event and register, please reference the details you can see on your screen now. Thanks again, Melanie, for your time today, and I can't wait for your presentation at the SMSF Professionals Day.